Hello students, welcome back to the final part of the lecture series on cancer biochemistry. Today we will be covering mainly competency number 10.2 which deals with tumor markers. Okay, so we have already discussed the biochemical basis of cancer therapy, various antimetabolites in our previous parts, and we also have covered cancer initiation, promotion on oncogenes, and also p53 and apoptosis. Okay, so let's see what we mean by tumor markers. Okay, now very important because tumor markers will come as number one short notes. Okay, number one short note, number two it will come as a viva, and tumor markers will also come as a part of long question along with other part long questions. All right, so what is an ideal tumor marker? The most important area is viva. You will be asked invariably in viva about tumor markers, and all the individual tumor marker will come as a short note. So it's better that you pause this video first, sit with a pen and paper, and then write it down, whatever points I have to say in this lecture session. So what is an ideal tumor marker? So let us understand first, what do we mean by tumor marker? A tumor marker is basically a substance, okay, a chemical, any variety of an analyte, okay, something which can be tested in blood, that gives us an idea about an ongoing or developing cancer or tumor inside our body. Generally, if we want to get a direct evidence, we should remove the tumor, surgically remove it, and go for histopathological biopsy, and then that's a definitive proof that this is a tumor or a cancer. Okay, that's the most specific test, histopathology. However, as a part of screening test, the first test by which we can get an idea is by analyzing these. These are the indirect tests for existing tumors. So tumor markers, so what are the characteristics of an ideal tumor marker? So number one, must be produced by tumor cells. Definitely this is of course number one criteria, because unless they are produced by tumor cells, if it is produced by something else, then it will give us a false positive result or an impression. So these should be produced by tumor cells so that their value when they are found in blood to be raised will indicate a tumor. Okay, so very important, should not be present in normal, healthy and benign condition. Tumor markers are also interchangeably, colloquially called cancer markers. Okay, so we are worried about a malignant disease, something which is deadly. So these factors ideally should not rise when a person is healthy, or even in case of benign tumors. Okay, it should not be the case. Next, must be detectable in body fluids. The easiest test or easiest sample to test is body fluid. It may be CSF, it may be blood, or it may be any tissue fluid. It's much easier compared to a hard tissue. Okay, so body fluids should contain this chemical, and ideally it could be used for screening the presence of cancer in asymptomatic patients. Very important. Yes, I agree this, I am an Indian, okay, and if you are seeing this video overseas, you might be wondering what's the scenario over here, right? The scenario over here is patients generally do not turn up to physician unless they are gravely ill, unless they're in the last stage of the disease and it cannot be managed by any other means. In contrast, compared to the Western countries, they are very self-conscious and they keep on visiting their physicians for regular routine checkup. There comes the role of tumor marker. If these tumor marker can diagnose an asymptomatic case, the cancer is somewhere hidden but it is not symptomatic, the patient is not yet highlighting the symptoms, still it gives us some suspicion. So it should be the case where it can be screened in asymptomatic patients. So that will be an ideal tumor marker. Of course, if the patient land up with this much big size mass, the tumor marker has to be positive, but we don't need a marker then. Okay, we can see the tumor directly. So the importance of tumor marker arises in much more in an asymptomatic patient. So what are the criteria for the diagnostic marker? Okay, so these are the four criteria. I didn't animate because all of them are equally important. Number one, highly specific. What do we mean by highly specific? Highly specific means if this tumor marker is present, it will prove that ultimately the person has got the cancer. Okay, a specific test means there is very less false negative, means if this marker is present, the disease has to be present. Okay, so it is specific. So okay, highly sensitive. Okay, highly sensitive on the other hand means, okay, actually to be honest, this two terms, the sensitive and specific, will be much more clear when you attend your statistics lesson in community medicine. Okay, a highly sensitive test means, okay, if the test is positive, there is a strong suspicion that the disease is present. So the test positive has a strong suspicion of a disease being present. It may be false positive. So a highly sensitive test generally has got false positive test. But a highly specific test generally does not have any false positive test. Highly specific means, okay, if the disease is present, the tumor marker has to be present. It's the other way around. Sensitive means if the tumor marker is present, we have a suspicion that the disease is present, strong suspicion. But specific means confirmed. If the tumor marker is present, we are almost sure that the disease is also present. So these are used interchangeably. The terms are confusing, but trust me, since you are a first year student, examiner will not be asking what do you mean by sensitivity and specificity. It is strictly a statistical concept and will only be discussed when you are a third year student in community medicine. But you need to mention these points. Ideally, there is no tumor marker or there is no test which is 100% sensitive or 100% specific. So these are all hypothetical, but almost 80 to 90% sensitive and specific together is very much feasible. So highly sensitive, highly specific. Again, able to differentiate between neoplastic and non-neoplastic diseases. Non-neoplastic diseases means inflammatory diseases. Okay, those are not tumor producing. I'll give an example. There are few diseases, for example tuberculosis. It will mimic lung cancer, for example blood in sputum. Okay, but there are certain tumor markers in lung cancer which will be negative in tuberculosis. So a tumor marker should be able to differentiate between a neoplastic, that is a malignant or a tumor producing disease, from a non-neoplastic disease. Alright. Next, increase in level should precede the neoplastic processes. Very important. Just the same point as the last point. It is, we are dealing about asymptomatic cases now. So the tumor marker level should increase first rather than the tumor. Even before the tumor grows in size, the tumor marker should rise. That will lead a strong suspicion. Not like the other way around. If the tumor is already big enough and then the tumor marker rises, there is no point in using this marker in diagnosing the disease in advance. Alright, so these are the 4 very important diagnostic criteria for tumor marker. This is the ideal characteristic by which a chemical can behave as a tumor marker. Just note these points and move on to the next slide. So what are the uses of tumor marker? One use is very clear and it's almost a no-brainer, to detect tumors. Okay, so number 1 is for diagnosis. We need to identify what tumor is there. So diagnosis is number 1. Next come prognosis. What is prognosis? Means the outcome. Okay, what is the good or bad outcome of the disease? So suppose there is high level of tumor marker and we detect a disease. Okay, then we surgically remove the disease, but there is always a suspicion among oncosurgeons that some amount of tumor may be left behind as metastasis. There comes the prognostic role of tumor markers. So after surgery, tumor marker levels are assayed in an interval of 4 to 6 weeks, and a decline in tumor marker levels comprehensively proves that all the bulk of tumor has been removed. If any amount of tumor cells are left behind, tumor marker level will not fall. So this has got a very important prognostic value along with diagnostic value. Okay. Next is localization of tumors. Okay. After a tumor is dissected, the tumor cells will be tested for the tumor marker along with all the other cells of the body. So indirectly, see, localization is a tough concept for you to grasp before you do the surgery part and there a special chapter of oncosurgery will help you how you can localize tumor, what is the grading and staging of tumor. But just know this, tumor markers, especially the receptor variety of tumor markers, can be used to localize or specifically locate where is the tumor. Okay, so number one, localization of tumor marker, and also determine whether the tumor has spread via metastasis or not. And the next is monitoring the treatment. Suppose we are the tumor is inoperable, it is so big or it has spread so much that the tumor cannot be resected or it cannot be surgically removed. So the tumor marker level will continue to rise, but if we start a chemotherapy or a radiotherapy, the tumor bulk, the tumor load, the tumor cells will die and the tumor will shrink, the cancer will shrink. Simultaneously, the tumor marker levels also falls. So a positive response for chemotherapy is also very important by detecting the level of these tumor markers, so monitoring the treatment. So uses of tumor markers are four. Number one, diagnosis to detect the disease, prognosis to determine the outcome, localization to localize the tumor, and monitoring the treatment. How effective is the tumor therapy, anti-tumor therapy. Alright. The next is classification of tumor marker, and this is the area from where long question will come. A tumor marker itself, long question, means you have to classify all the types of tumor marker and you have to briefly touch each and every variety and class of tumor marker. So this classification is very important. Also, if you are asked about tumor marker in Viva, tumor marker as a whole, not the individual part, then you need to mention these classifications. Okay, so very important for Viva. So number one, tumor markers can be classified into enzymes. These are the first variety which were isolated. Okay, tumor markers. Hormones. I will give each and every example and I will deal with each and every classes that is important for your curriculum and syllabus. Proteins. Certain proteins are very important as tumor markers. Oncofetal antigen, one of the favorite short note and Viva topic of examiners. So hormones, enzymes, proteins, oncofetal antigens. Few genes I already discussed in the last part. What are the genes? Anti-oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes. They also act as tumor marker, and specifically carbohydrate antigen as well as blood group antigen. They can also, in some very special cases, can act as tumor markers. And lastly, the receptors. Various specialized type of receptors can act as tumor markers in determining whether the tumor, the nature of the tumor, and various prognostic and diagnostic roles. Okay, so first I will be talking about oncofetal antigens. Again, and its individual short note on its own and a very important Viva topic. Okay, so oncofetal antigens. So what are oncofetal antigens? This is the exact definition that examiners are looking for. You can read it, you can write it, but in the exam you have to reproduce it in your own language. So oncofetal antigens are proteins. See the name, onco means cancer, okay, something related to oncology, and fetal means in fetus, okay, in the newborns. The fetus means specifically the babies in utero, those are not yet born, okay. So oncofetal antigens are produced during the fetal life, okay. These are antigens, proteins that are produced during fetal life and are present in high concentration during fetal life. When the baby is in utero, it is present in high concentration. However, the normal physiology dictates them to disappear or become very low in concentration after birth. So oncofetal antigens are normally present in fetus, but after birth they soon disappear from the circulation. However, they reappear during cancers. Okay, so these protein will reappear in cancer patient. Two most important oncofetal antigen that you absolutely need to know is AFP, that is alpha fetoprotein, and carcinoembryonic antigen or CEA. Very important for your MCQ purposes, right? So let us discuss AFP first. Each and every line. So see, oncofetal antigen may come as a short note, AFP will come as a short note, CEA, etc. So all of them will come as a short note. Okay, so tumor marker chapter is extremely important. That's why we are completing this lesson in this online class. So first point about alpha fetoprotein is its molecular weight is 70,000. Now this may not be strictly expected from you. You may goof up the molecular weight and nobody will give a damn. What is important is the next part. It's fetal albumin and it resembles adult albumin. Means the structure of AFP is quite similar to that of adult albumin. Their 3D conformation is more or less very similar. This is most important. The normal level in adult is less than 10 nanogram per liter. In very special cases, 10 to 20 is somewhat permissible. Okay, remember it's Ng per liter, nanogram. It is not Mg. Absolutely not. It is Ng, nanogram per liter, 10 to the power minus 9. So, what is the critical value beyond which we will term it cancer? Okay, specifically liver tumors, liver cancer, that is more than 300 nanograms per liter is associated with cancer. Extremely important. You should remember this value. So, it's elevated in hepatocellular carcinoma, liver and liver. So, if AFP is raised in out of all of the options, hepatocellular carcinoma, liver cancer is given, you have to mark liver as option number 1. Okay. There are other cases in which this alpha fetoprotein may be elevated. Now I told you this alpha fetoprotein is actually belongs to the fetus, okay, and it is confined to the neural tube. However, in pregnancies with neural tube defect, so in any case where there is fetal abnormality, that alpha fetoprotein will come by the placenta into the maternal blood. Then a pregnancy with neural tube defect will have raised alpha fetoprotein. Next, germ cell tumor. All of these, the detail, what is germ cell tumor? Tumors of testis and ovary. Okay, those are developed from the stem cells called as germ cells. It will be discussed in much more detail in ultimately pathology and gynecology. So just know that germ cell tumor, but if you have to remember only one, always remember liver cancer. Okay, so pregnancy with neural tube defect, fetal abnormality is a not absolutely physiological, it is an abnormal condition, but it is a non-neoplastic reason why an alpha fetoprotein may be elevated. Okay, so alpha fetoprotein level elevated, mildly elevated, may also be seen in hepatitis, cirrhosis and pregnancy. So in all those cases, alpha fetoprotein levels will be raised, but not beyond 300 nanograms per liter. An extremely high value of alpha fetoprotein will almost always indicate cancers, namely first and foremost hepatocellular carcinoma, liver cancer and germ cell tumor. Because this is a special case, okay, you can jolly well take history and find out whether the patient is pregnant or not. Okay, so if the patient is pregnant, therefore we may think about other causes of alpha fetoprotein high level, but otherwise always and always liver cancer. The next is CEAR, carcinoembryonic antigen. Now let us see where this variety of protein is raised. It consists of large family of cell surface glycoprotein. Okay, so it's a variety of glycoprotein. It's important, and its molecular weight is ranging from 150 to 300 kd. Not that important for you. You may totally omit this point. The molecular weights are actually impossible to remember, and there is no point in remembering the molecular weights. Okay, very important. It is normally produced by tissue of embryonic liver, pancreas and gut. Okay, normally produced by embryonic tissue of liver, pancreas and gut. Remember the three combination: liver, pancreas and gut. Okay, so its level is released, elevated in, again I am telling you, embryonic tissue. Okay, in fetus, oncofetal antigen, these are present in stage of embryo, not after birth. So colorectal cancer, that is cancer of the gut, gastrointestinal cancer, again cancer of the gut, and pancreatic cancer. Okay, apart from that, they may also be elevated in lung cancer, breast cancer, ovarian and uterine cancer. Yes, it is produced by liver tissue in embryo, but due to some reason, liver tissues in adult, if it is carcinogenic, produces AFP, not carcinoembryonic antigen. Okay, the next are the tumor marker enzymes. As I told you, these are the first group of tumor markers that were identified. So now remember, in oncofetal antigen we already discussed about CEA and AFP. So what are these enzymes? Most of the names you might have heard somewhere. If not, let us learn together. ALP or alkaline phosphatase, very important. You have done liver function test. In jaundice, this enzyme is raised. Okay. Now yes, you must be wondering, well, alkaline phosphatase is raised in many diseases. In liver disorder, in benign disorder like fatty liver, cirrhosis of liver, ALP is raised. In alcoholic cirrhosis, ALP is raised. I agree. This is an indirect marker. This is a marker that the tumor has spread to liver. So whenever there is any cancer, other tumor markers are raised, along with ALP is also raised. It means there has been metastasis. The tumor has spread to the liver. So number one, primary tumor of liver, hepatocellular carcinoma, or secondary involvement of liver. Secondary means liver is not the original site of cancer, but the tumor cells have gone and spread to the liver, and now liver cancer has also happened. The main cause of death in cancers are multi-organ failure due to multiple cancer cells that have nested in various organs when they are spread at the last and fourth stage, that is stage 4, via metastasis. But you should also know that high level of alkaline phosphatase is also seen in secondary involvement of bone cancer. Actually, alkaline phosphatase has got many isomers. There is a liver isomer of alkaline phosphatase. There is a placenta, pregnancy, placental isomer of alkaline phosphatase. There is also a variety of bone alkaline phosphatase. Okay, the placental alkaline phosphatase is not much discussed because it is not a normal condition. So bone alkaline phosphatase is very important. So if a cancer has spread to the bone, for example in osteosarcoma, alkaline phosphatase will be raised. Now if you are asked that how can you differentiate between these two isomers, the liver alkaline phosphatase and the bone alkaline phosphatase, your answer should be number one, electrophoresis. How to differentiate isomer? Number two, heat sensitivity. Heat sensitivity. Why the bone alkaline phosphatase is much more heat stable, and the placental alkaline phosphatase and the liver alkaline, hepatic alkaline phosphatase are heat labile. So they will disintegrate on heat. The placental is most heat labile, followed by the liver and followed by the bone. Bone alkaline phosphatase are much more heat resistant. But on electrophoresis, all the isomers will be separated, can be separated easily. Next, the two liver enzymes that are as normally analyzed in liver panel, that is gamma glutamyl transferase or GGT or 5' nucleotidase 5-NT are also used to diagnose liver cancer. Why we are discussing these enzymes? Because our topic is enzymes that can act as tumor markers. Mind it, when you are giving viva from enzyme chapter, always mentally prepare that examiner will invariably ask you, fine, tell me the role of enzyme in detecting cancer. So from simple Michaelis-Menten equation question from competitive and uncompetitive inhibition, examiner will suddenly make a 180-degree turn and will enter into tumor markers, and from tumor marker he will go into proto-oncogene and oncogene. So this is the chain of question in viva which you need to expect when you are giving the professional exam. Okay, the next enzyme, that is acid phosphatase. So we have already read about alkaline phosphatase, that is present in bone, placenta and liver. There is also acid phosphatase which is present in prostate gland. It is elevated in prostatic cancer. So cancer of the prostate gland. Okay, prostate gland is present only in the males. So prostate cancer is exclusive to male patients. However, at this point I should tell you, I will be discussing it in the next few slides, that another antigen, that is PSA or prostate specific antigen, is much more sensitive and specific than acid phosphatase. But if you are asked about the enzymes that act as tumor markers, you need to mention acid phosphatase, alkaline phosphatase, GGT and 5' nucleotidase. So there the role of acid phosphatase comes. So acid phosphatase in prostatic cancer. Have you got any better option to test prostate cancer? Yes, PSA or prostate specific antigen. Hormones. they also play an important role in diagnosing certain cancer. Okay, so what are these conditions? Mainly, these are known as paraneoplastic syndrome. Paraneoplastic syndrome. What is paraneoplastic syndrome? Believe me, you will be taught in much detail in pathology. These are symptoms that occurs in and around the cancer. So there are specific hormones which are raised when there is a specific variety of cancer. This is the definition of tumor marker, right? And they mostly indicate a paraneoplastic syndrome and indirectly gives us an idea that okay, this tissue we need to investigate in order to find this cancer if this hormone is raised. So high level of hormone is secreted by endocrine tissues where it is normally secreted. So the tissue, the endocrine gland, should normally secrete normal value, that is low value. However, in special cases, high values are secreted. So it can also happen that when these hormones are secreted by a non-endocrine gland, okay, there lies the problem. Those are known as ectopic syndrome. For example, parathormone is secreted by parathyroid gland. Thyroxine or calcitonin, those hormones are secreted by thyroid gland. But what if thyroid gland or parathyroid gland or any other endocrine gland is not secreting these hormones? It is getting secreted by some cancer cells which are not present in and around the normal glands. Then we call it ectopic secretion. However, they will secrete hormone and the hormone level will be raised in blood and we can suspect cancer. So let us check what are these hormones. Okay. Number one, ACTH, very important. As I told you, lung cancer, ACTH, normally it is secreted from pituitary, right? It's a pituitary hormone, anterior pituitary hormone. It is a marker of lung cancer. It is raised in lung cancer because it is secreted from the lung by ectopic tissues. Okay, bronchogenic carcinoma has got a very nasty reputation of a high ACTH. Next, calcitonin. Okay, normally it is secreted from C cells of thyroid. It is diagnostic or it is a strong marker of medullary carcinoma of thyroid, MCT, medullary carcinoma of thyroid. This is a very important MCQ for undergraduate as well as for NEET exam. Again, the source is ectopic. Almost all of the hormones are secreted by ectopic tissues only, with an exception of pheochromocytoma. So parathyroid hormone, normally parathormone secreted by parathyroid gland, but they are also secreted in large amount in case of breast cancer, liver cancer, lung cancer. Ectopic source. ADH, normally posterior pituitary hormone, is increased in case of adrenal cortex tumor, pancreatic tumor and duodenal tumor. Again, they are secreted by ectopic tissue. Now, the tumor of adrenal gland or suprarenal medulla, okay, it is known as pheochromocytoma. And since already adrenal medulla secretes epinephrine and norepinephrine, and especially only in this case, high level of epinephrine indicates a tumor in which the source is not ectopic. So the source is normal. I have already discussed adrenal function test. Okay, you can see the thumbnail and you can find the link in the description. Please go through adrenal function test. Is a new addition to this year's curriculum and competencies, and this is an important marker of pheochromocytoma. I already discussed in adrenal function test, so I will not be discussing it in detail in this slide. Next, another most important short note and one of the favorite topics of gynecologists and obstetricians, that is beta HCG, beta human chorionic gonadotropin. You should know this, that this is the hormone, this is the protein or whatever you want to call it, this is the agent or analyte, okay, this is a chemical which we test in pregnancy or preg color card test is actually the assay of beta HCG. So increased level of beta HCG in physiological condition in a childbearing age of a woman generally indicates pregnancy unless proved otherwise. There are multiple other causes of raised beta HCG and which will be seeing. So it is synthesized. Main sources trophoblast of placenta. You have completed your embryology classes and you must be knowing what is syncytiotrophoblast and cytotrophoblast. If not, just ask me in the comment section and I will make you understand if I can. Okay. So, trophoblast of placenta, the glycoprotein, another glycoprotein, its molecular weight is 45 kilodalton. Now, it has two dissimilar subunits. Generally, the human chorionic gonadotropin has got two subunits, one is alpha and one is beta. But we always assay the beta subunit. The alpha subunit is not assayed. We never test alpha HCG. Why? Because the alpha subunit is identical with many anterior pituitary hormones like FSH, LH and TSH. So, if we assay alpha HCG, these hormones will also give a false positive test. So, because the structure is so much similar. However, the beta subunit is very specific for HCG. So, we always test the level of beta subunit of human chorionic gonadotropin. Normal value is less than 20 IU per liter, international unit per liter. So, in non-malignant or non-neoplastic and non-pregnant state, it is less than 20 IU. However, it is elevated in number 1 trophoblastic tumor. Okay, so all tumors of the uterus, beta HCG will be raised. Ovarian tumor, beta HCG will be raised. Choriocarcinoma, okay, germ cell tumor. So, these are the tumors in which beta HCG is raised, and I already told you number in pregnancy beta HCG is also raised very high. So, if we rule out pregnancy, if these three conditions are present, then beta HCG level will be very high, or other way around, if we rule out pregnancy and beta HCG level is very high, we should almost always suspect the tumor. Next, we come to certain proteins. So, what are they? I have already discussed PSA, or prostate specific antigen, extremely important. It is useful in diagnosis of prostate cancer. Let me tell you the value over here, less than 4 Ng per liter, 4 nanogram per liter, okay, not DL. So, more than 4, 10 to 20 is indicative of prostate cancer, right? So, next is Bence-Jones protein. Now, Bence-Jones protein is found in a certain type of blood cancer, that is multiple myeloma. It's a variety of B lymphocyte and plasma cell tumor, okay, and it is produced from the light chain of immunoglobulin known as M protein, okay. Please let me know if you have been taught about Bence-Jones protein in the comment section. If not, it is very important. I'll be taking a separate class and we'll be making a separate video on Bence-Jones protein, multiple myeloma, what is M protein, so on and so forth. So, this is used for the diagnosis of multiple myeloma, a variety of blood cancer. You have done heat coagulation tests, right, for detection of protein. Now, this property of Bence-Jones protein, it has got a peculiar property towards heat. It reacts very differently compared to normal albumin. What happens in heat coagulation test? You mix the albumin or the sample with some acetic acid reagent and then you heat, or you heat and then an acetic acid reagent. What happens? A coagulum is formed at around 70 to 80 degrees centigrade. You keep the lower part as control and in the upper part as test, and the coagulum is formed on the upper part of the test tube. This is heat coagulation test. But peculiarly, Bence-Jones protein, if you heat, similarly, it will form a precipitate and coagulum at 50 to 60 degrees centigrade. However, it redissolves, it completely dissolves at 90 degrees centigrade. So, if you keep on heating, normal heat coagulation test, the coagulum will deepen, it will form a thick white card of coagulum. But Bence-Jones protein will dissolve. And the reverse changes occur on cooling. So, on cooling, it again precipitates. So, if you are seeing this abnormal heat coagulation test, you must always mention Bence-Jones proteinuria, and it is present in multiple myeloma. Important point in practicals, if you are given heat coagulation test for diagnosis of proteins, always be ready to mention multiple myeloma, because multiple myeloma is a cause of pathological rise of proteinuria or pathological proteinuria. Next, I will not say what is this, okay, I will give you a hint, and these are image based question. Remember, I told you the combination gut liver and pancreas. The combination is slightly different over here. Ovary, gut and pancreas. So a glycoprotein with very heavy molecular weight, 10 million. So this is the type of question that will be given in your NEET exam or AIIMS postgraduate, whatever exam you now sit for. There will be an image and there will be few points and you need to identify the odd one out, I mean the correct one. Okay, so normally its level is less than 35 unit per ml and it's elevated in ovarian cancer. Very important, this is the star in ovarian cancer. This is the most important tumor marker. Next in pancreatic cancer, and also it is raised in GI tract cancer. So what is the tumor marker? I am talking about CA125. Extremely important. If you are asked the most important tumor marker for ovarian cancer, you should and always should answer CA125. Nothing else matters. Okay, so CA125 is raised more than 35, generally it's raised 50 to 100. It is almost absolutely diagnostic of ovarian cancer. Remember, CA125 and all of these agents that I have mentioned will come as an individual short note. So after hormones and proteins, we now look into some genes. Strictly speaking, in case of genes, these are mainly Viva questions. So you will be asked these in Viva, asked about these, where you need to classify your answer, even if it comes as a short note. No issue, I will be teaching you everything right now. So oncogenes, the genes can be divided into two parts. Number one is oncogene and number two anti-oncogene. Anti-oncogene means tumor suppressor gene. Okay, so let us know about at least two names of the oncogenes and the cancer that they produce. I already discussed this in last class, how a tumor is produced. Oncogene, RAS gene, sarcoma, c-MYC gene, leukemia and lymphoma. Very important, you must know these two names. Okay. Yes, there are other oncogenes like Philadelphia chromosome for CML, but that is mainly a abnormality. It occurs by translocation. This is normal. Normally oncogene is present, but their excess activity will give rise to cancer. And at least you should know name of two anti-oncogene, that is tumor suppressor gene. They can also act as tumor marker. So these are actually the accelerators. If you know the last class, if you did the last class, it will make sense. And these are the brakes. So if you lift foot off the brake, then also cancer will happen. So tumor markers, the anti-oncogenes are tumor suppressor genes that controls development of tumor. But if their activity is uncontrolled or if their inhibition is lost, then also tumor and cancer will happen. So P53 is raised, or tumor suppressor gene, its value is abnormal in breast cancer and colon cancer, BRCA1 and BRCA2 in breast cancer, and RB gene in retinoblastoma. This name should be very familiar to you. And lastly, yes, this is the last slide of the day, receptors. Receptors mainly at your level, if you are a first year students, you need to know only names of two receptors. Number one estrogen and number two progesterone. And they help in diagnosing mainly breast cancer. They have got prognostic as well as diagnostic value, mainly prognostic value. So estrogen and progesterone receptors are useful as prognostic indicators and also help to decide the hormonal therapy in breast cancer. In breast cancer, okay, there is a drug that is known as tamoxifen, TAMOXIFEN citrate, tamoxifen citrate. It will be taught in detail in pharmacology. It's also used as an infertility drug. Anyway, it's a estrogen receptor inhibitor. Okay, in breast cancer there are 3 lines of treatment. Normally I told you what are the lines of treatment, what are the treatment options for cancer: chemotherapy, radiotherapy and surgery. Generally, depending on the tumor, either chemotherapy or radiotherapy is chosen. Since breast is a soft tissue, radiotherapy is not that much well tolerated, mainly because there are other vital organs in this area. So hormonal therapy is one of the mainstay of a breast cancer. And if the breast tissue, the resected tissue, is positive for ER and PR, that is positive for estrogen and progesterone, So they almost always necessitate the hormonal therapy and is very effective. So therapy with these hormonal agents, anti-hormonal agents, gives a very good result in case of ER/PR positive breast cancer. So PRSA is useful as an adjunct to ERSA for breast cancer. So both estrogen and progesterone receptors, their presence will give us important information regarding the prognosis as well as the tumor outcome and the treatment options. So remember students, we come to the end of our tumor marker lesson. So if you have got some patience, we will roll back. We'll absolutely go to the first slide and we will go test. So what are the characteristic of ideal tumor markers? We have discussed about the criteria, how a chemical agent can behave as a tumor marker, what are the uses of tumor marker. Next we have classified the tumor marker, and we have told you that it's very important for VIVA. Oncofetal antigen, mainly AFP and CEA, they will come as an individual short note, and you need to know at least the variety of tumors where these are positive. Then we have talked about enzymes, hormones, and the hormones that are positive in some diseases, and how ectopic cancerous tissues can produce some hormones. Okay, we already discussed about beta HCG, and then we discussed about proteins, how certain proteins can act as tumor markers like PSA and CA125. Actually, CA125 is not a protein, it's a carbohydrate antigen that belongs to a separate group of tumor marker. There are multiple other example of carbohydrate antigens, CA15-3, CA19-9, but for first year students, CA125 is most that you need to know. Then we discussed about how oncogenes and anti-oncogenes can act as tumor markers, and at last estrogen and progesterone receptor. Now if you have watched this video till now and you have not skipped this video after 1 minute, so for my loyal students, I want you to comment the code of the day, that is marker, in the comment section. If you have written marker, if you are writing marker, I will know that you have watched this video, and I believe that you are well equipped to answer any question that examiner throws at you regarding cancer biochemistry. So I thank you a lot. Feel free to get back to me in the comment section, and I will see you soon with another video. Our molecular biology lessons will be continuing. Till then, bye and take care.